No.
Text Nathan Ivy.
What do you want to say to me?
It looks like we're having technical difficulties, so I guess enjoy your day off. Question mark.
Ready to send it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send it.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, Renee's gonna speak through the microphone, and then I'm gonna put you on speaker, you need to be able to respond and tell me if you can hear back, okay? Okay, there we go.
Commissioner Ivy, can you hear this?
I cannot hear Renee. It was very muffled.
No,
Ask him what he wants.
yeah. Okay. Closed session in which one? Oh. Yeah, I forgot. That's the one I forgot to tell you about. For closed session.
Which one?
It would be under, I think, litigation. Is that the one they told us we needed to do it under with court? Rob? Treasurer's office, is that under litigation? Yes.
All right, can you hear us now, Commissioner Ivy?
Yeah, I can hear you, Bill.
All right.
What about you, Commissioner Gray?
I've always heard.
Yeah, I can. Commissioner Gray is better than Bill.
That'll work.
Satisfactory for you?
If you can't hear us for some reason, just
Cough.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I can't hear you, or if I can't hear one of the presenters, I'll maybe just ask my question through you on those agenda items.
okay. That will work.
Yeah, litigation.
Okay.
Yep. Lisa, I left my binder upstairs.
Okay,
left my
welcome
binder
this
upstairs.
morning to our commission meeting. It's good to have you here. As always, we're looking for participation in a prayer reading or a thought and in the Pledge of Allegiance. And if anyone would like to volunteer, just raise your hand, come on up and introduce who you are. Any volunteers? Seeing none. Oh, got one for the pledge. All right. Okay, very good. Thanks, Robert. Come on up.
And we're thankful for this opportunity to be here in this valley and to be around men and women who try so hard to serve the public and to do what's best. We pray for thy inspiration during this meeting. In the Savior's name, amen.
Amen.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on our consent agenda, we have 10 items. It's been requested that we strike number 4. And I have no others on there on the consent. Anything for you, Commissioner Ivy, that you'd like to pull
Nope.
off? Okay. Then moving to our regular agenda, the only ones that I have questions on or that we need to hold for discussion.
Number 2.
Did you say number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. If we could hold number 9. Maybe just some questions on number 10, if we could hold number 10. Number 13, 16, and 17. Are there any others?
No. Those were some I had.
Who asked for 15 to be held?
15?
Brandon, you know that 15, oh.
Number 3 is the one that I was, the applicant's still trying to hammer out a
So what's the preference there?
number 3, they want
For 1 week?
Continue it for 1 week? Is that what you're looking for, is to continue it for 1 week? Yeah. Oh, is that the different one?
No, we did his on consent. His is approved
Okay.
on
So-
consent.
So 3 to continue for 1 week?
yes, number 3 to continue for 1 week.
Okay, on consent to continue for 1 week, number 3.
And hold 15 after all, I guess.
Okay. Okay, any others?
None, me.
Okay. Any comments on those that we have put on consent? You have a comment? Yes? These are on consent to approve, accept, I think those are authorized.
Hi, my name is Robert Stevens. On my loop road, it started off and they said, you know, we'd like you to put the filled dirt around the whole loop road because that would provide emergency vehicle access. And the price of that was like $153,000, and so we said, well, is it possible we could just build some cul-de-sacs? It's the question I have is, are both still options, or is it one or the other at this
Are you
point?
saying cul-de-sacs, or are you doing like the
Yeah.
hammerhead stuff?
Well, you and I had had talked about hammerheads as an option, but when the engineer, when he drew it, he drew in a couple of cul-de-sacs. So I would just like to know if we have some options here, because, it's the purpose is to give emergency trucks and vehicles access, as well as allow me to go do this so I can sell a parcel and then build the rest of the road. And I think either way we do it will accomplish our goals.
Richard can tell us whether there's options.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Richard Nelson, Public Works Director. Mr. Stevens submitted a set of plans through his engineer. We've reviewed those. What we're looking at is that it would be built per plan. Now, on that plan, it has the cul-de-sacs. If he wants to do something different than that, then we would need a new set of plans brought back in, reviewed, and we could review that. But what we're looking at is it would be built per the set of plans that was submitted.
Right.
So the one that's on consent right now is
Is
the plan,
cul-de-sacs.
no, is the plan with the loop road.
It actually has both. It has the loop road
Has
and the,
either
and it
one
has the
or the
loop
other.
road gravelled as a D road, and the cul-de-sacs, and Brandon, help me, are they paved or what are they?
Yes, in your or in the documents I attached to the agenda request, there was a map that showed the loop road, and there was a portion in red and a portion in blue. The portion closest to 7,300, I can't remember, I think it was blue, those portions would be paved, and then the red portion.
600 or 700 feet off of 70.
Right, both legs, about 600 or 700 feet would be paved, and then the rest would be in road base. I think it'd be everything but the pavement. And so his plans that he submitted showed the entire loop road and the cul-de-sacs going down about 700 feet off the road. So essentially what you'd be approving is 700 feet of pavement on both legs, and then the rest would be in road base, and you'd have cul-de-sacs 700 feet.
And we're open to look at options, but, we look at the set of plans that's been submitted to us, and that's what's been presented to you gentlemen. So.
So my question is this, so if you took the 700 feet with the pavement and then did a cul-de-sac, could they stop right there?
If he just submitted plans, the reason why it's coming forward to you this way is because of the plans he submitted.
You got a call coming in, Commissioner Ivy. Or Spring, this is Springfield. We're gonna decline it, sorry.
That's the extra beeps we're getting.
Okay,
So that, you know, we're open to options, we just need to,
All right.
we need a set of plans that matches what's getting built in the field.
sure.
Commissioner Ivy still there?
Is this,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
this on?
Make sure I didn't hang up on
Roberts
you.
Excavator,
Okay.
Brian Sorensen. I mean, kind of what we was planning to do, I don't know what we want to do, but if we went in to build those cul-de-sacs, pave up to that area, and then we was talking about putting the fill around the entire thing for now, paving those two sections. My question that I've never got answered for sure, do we got to pave the cul-de-sac, or can we just put the road through? It doesn't really show though. The whole.
The
round.
cul-de-sac.
It looked to me like it was just the road going through it, and then the outside.
When we had reviewed the plans, that came in, it showed the cul-de-sac bulb being paved.
Right.
So that's
That
what
was
we'd
my
anticipate
question.
at this point, so. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
And that's what was approved.
Are going to be?
Well, it was on
That
consent.
was,
It was approved on our end.
Well,
yeah,
well, we approved it on consent, now we're
Yeah.
taking comment.
well, that was something we didn't realize until after it was submitted. We really aren't interested in paving the cul-de-sac, just to jackhammer it up the next week. If I have to resubmit, you know, and ask if that's a possibility, I'll be happy to go do that.
Yeah, any deviation from that plan that was approved would need to be resubmitted.
Okay, thank you very much.
A follow-up question that may be more directed towards Robert. Not that Robert, not this Robert, sorry. If the commission action is to approve the B road status and the updating of the map, change on construction plans, does that just come back through my office, or does that need to come back to the commission?
So what about the D portion? Is that being approved today too?
Yeah, on the current
It's
plan,
on
it would
that.
be, yes.
Yeah. So as far as if they're accepting the B portion, which would include the cul-de-sac, then you would have to approve what that ultimately looks like. I mean, the commission does
For
not
the
usually
construction-wise.
get involved as to how much pavement, how wide, those kind of things. They approve whether it's on the map or not.
I'm just
But
wondering
it's
if-
your office is the one who
If
approves.
Mr. Stevens wants to do the hammerheads versus the cul-de-sac, is that something that we can approve in my office versus coming back to the commission?
Not positive on that. I'd have to look at it, so.
Not trying to muddy the waters, but just want to see what level of approval we have to go back to.
One of the last conditions in the staff report that I gave you says that the proposed road right-of-way not be accepted and the official road map not be amended until all of the above conditions are verified complete, which means they'd have to build the road first. So maybe, if you want to approve this, you'd have to strike it. And Richard, if I remember correctly, we thought it best if action was taken to approve this application today to actually request a bond.
Either be bonded or.
Well, we always
or
bond
be
on all
construct-
roads.
Or be constructed before we actually place it on the.
Right.
official road.
Correct. So
That's not we do that for every road thing we do.
So you would be
There's-
approving it, if you approve it today, you approve it subject to the completion of the road or
Right.
bond in the amount of the improvements of the road. And once the road's completed, then it would be officially accepted and put on our road maps.
Right.
Yep.
Are you saying that the entire loop road has to be all paved
No.
before
No.
you,
No.
or just a segment?
The gravel part
Oh, yeah,
Has
the
to be
gravel
done.
part,
Has
okay.
to be done.
done, and the bulbs either done or a new plan submitted before the county accepts it as a road,
Okay.
puts it on the map for approval.
And he has to build it,
Right.
but not build the entire loop road as a B road. You only have to build you have to do what your plans show, basically, currently.
Okay, okay,
And if
great.
you, but once you have that done, then, assuming they conditionally approve it today, it would then be put on our road maps.
Okay, and so then I could apply for subdivision with the parcels that are adjacent along it?
Yeah, but once that road,
Once it's road
Yeah.
is approved and put on the map, yes. So
Okay.
once you build it, yes.
you gotta build it.
Once I build the segments and
On the
whatever else we
plans,
decide?
yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, any other comments as pertaining to the consent agenda items that we put on consent? Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll move to number 2, which is to authorize commission chair to electronically sign a change order regarding the Mercer agreement. Tammy?
Originally, when we signed the contract, all of our modules were going to go live on October 7th. Closely after we started the project, we realized we need to separate it out into 2 go-live dates, saving the advanced compensation, the talent and performance succession, planning and recruiting until our second go-live date, which is January 8th.
And that's what this is that change.
Yeah, my
those
question
dates.
is why? What changed from when they presented to us that we didn't understand? Because I knew there was a portion we were always going to do later. Why did we add stuff to do later now? Like,
We
what
didn't.
changed?
Nothing changed. When
Okay.
you said we always knew we were going to do stuff later,
That's what this
I
is.
required them to put it in writing
Okay,
and put it
so-
before you
Okay,
to make
so
it
nothing
official. So
changed
it
from the
wasn't just
second
what we
later
talked
portion.
about.
This is
Correct.
what that is.
Yes.
Fantastic, okay.
Okay,
I just
So
couldn't remember. I only
after-
thought there were 3 sessions. That's why it was not in my mind, right? I thought we had 3, not 4, so.
so if it's approved today, then I'll be able to electronically sign, because they keep on sending me that document over and over in the email.
Yeah. Well, that's my fault because I've stressed that
Yeah,
although we've talked about it, it needs to be put in a formal no-cost change order because that was a discussion that we
Right.
had, that it would be put in writing, that we would modify the contract.
I just get 2 or 3 emails a week on this, documents
Sorry
to
about
sign.
that. Okay.
It's all right. Okay. Then a motion would be in order.
Move that we authorize the commission chair to finally sign that electronically in his email.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to authorize the commission chair to sign the change order as stated number 2 on the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. All right. Number 9. If we can get there on this one, it would seem to me that we would need to have some sort of a hard deadline in section 1C. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, if it's needed or not. Just kind of jumped out.
Okay. Again, Ralph Clegg with the Health Department. You know, we do these community assessments with United Way every 3 to 5 years or so. We use the information they gather for a lot of our grant applications because they gather good information on poverty rates, population, you know, a whole variety of things. It's a very comprehensive survey, and that anybody in the county can then use. Years ago, it was kind of determined that the health department would be the one to pay for the county's share of this particular
So
survey.
when would
So-
you normally need it back then to do these grant applications and stuff? Because as soon as they are completed is rather open-ended.
Yeah, it just says, as soon as they're completed, so that's what gave me the pause of,
Okay.
it sounds like.
Well, we
I'll
can
owe it to
certainly,
you,
we
but
can
I'll-
certainly try to tie them down to a date. We always get it, so.
I
it's
know, but
always-
when do you normally get it? So if we say October 31st, or if we say December 31st, 2017, just so there's a
Okay.
date of performance,
Why
right?
don't we continue to a week and let me check with Bill Holderstrom and see what date he'd be comfortable with. And we can put the date in there. I'm sure that's not
I don't think it's
it'll
a
be
big issue,
for them.
it just seems like
Yeah.
we should have something.
We
in
do
there.
want to get our copies and because we do use it.
Sure. No, and we understand the need. We just,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then I will
Yeah.
move that we continue regular agenda item 9 for 1 week.
Second?
Got a motion and a second to continue regular agenda item number 9 for 1 week. All in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay. Number 10, questions hopefully simple on it. Says, are these fees in line with the cost providing, the costs of providing these services? Are they in line? Or do you see any anomalies on them? When I can't, I mean, I look at them and see $21 for stuff and 206. I'm just wondering if they seem in line, or if you have any, some that have jumped out of line, or, anomalies that are in there.
Well, Richard Nance, Department of Drug and Alcohol Prevention and Treatment. Most of these are consistent with the Medicaid fee-for-service rates. Some of the ones like the drug screening, you see the $21 test, that's in line with our costs. We're not here to make a profit on anything. The confirmation at $48 per encounter, that varies, so that's an average of 1 or 2 or 3 positive drug tests that need to be sent to a separate laboratory for confirmation. So if it's not specifically Medicaid fee-for-service rates, we've done the math to determine what our costs are. So yeah, they're all in line with what
I
our
see
costs are.
from, from $25 up to over 1,100, and now I don't know if it's.
Which one are you looking at?
Well, there's that one for 1,100 on the.
Oh, the Vivitrol
Yeah, the
medication charge?
Vivitrol.
That's the cost of procuring that particular medication. So we can get, a range of costs between $860 and $1,100 depending on who provides the medication. If we can get it through an agreement with the Mountainlands Community Health Center, for instance, it'll be a lot less expensive than this, but this is the high-end retail price for this particular drug.
Okay, so what happens if you can get it less? You just charge the.
We charge the same.
The 1,100.
Right, because if we can't, we still have to cover our costs.
Yeah, so if you get it for 800 once, and then the next time it's 1,100, the price is still 1,100.
Right, exactly.
Okay. All right, that was my questions. Any other questions?
Nope.
Did you say you have a question, Commissioner Ivy?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
All right, motion would be in order.
I'll move that we approve regular agenda item 9.
10?
10? Yeah.
10?
Regular agenda item
sorry.
10.
Yeah, second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to approve and adopt the ordinance as stated in number 10 on the regular agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, number 13 deals with an agreement we have with Elk Ridge for law enforcement services. And I know we have individuals here and I just wanted to thank the law enforcement. We had a great conversation yesterday. I think we're on the same page, headed in the right direction. I just mentioned that I wanted to have some conversation here as we walk down through this. Ultimately, the goal with these contracts is to break even. Not expend more money than needed, and not be at a deficit or subsidize. And so, as we spoke yesterday, this one here deals with Elk Ridge, but as it came up, it kind of blossomed into a bigger conversation with all the contracts that are in place. And to maybe give a little bit of a history on this, as we provide services there, understanding that it's a fluid process, trying to capture the expenses appropriately and then allocate them appropriately to the cities who are willing to pay them. They just want to make sure that they're being paid, are being expensed to them appropriately. There was a couple of things we noticed in there, which one of them that I was looking for, and that was to have a true-up process in which we could have a period of time to true up towards the end of the year, whatever the end of the year is, and be able to say, okay, you know, we did this, here's the expenses that were put into it, and the contract is this, and see if we can kind of true it up towards the end of the year. Now, they're on a fiscal year basis, we're on a calendar year. That causes some problems, and we did have a conversation yesterday on that. And then I went and found the Eagle Mountain one, and they have a true-up process in their MOU, which they say the county agrees to notify the city of the actual costs by April 1st for the next contract year commencing July 1st. If the actual cost increases during the contract year, the county gives the city 60-day prior notice of the increase. County will bill the city monthly for the deputy services, additional deputy services, and patrol responses. I see that as a true-up. I'm not sure if we're actually exercising that all the way through. Probably portions of it we are.
We do portions. Mike Forsheet, Undersheriff of the county. That's when we look at the costs for the next coming year, and basically this year I believe we
3%.
3%,
I think,
to that to cover what we assumed that it would be. If you're talking about an actual true up to go back and say for the past year, I don't know that is actually being done, and we most certainly can do that.
Yeah, because I think we have that in there. The county will give the city 60 days prior notice of the increase. And I think that gives us the option to say, you know, if something happens, we can go back and say, we're gonna have an increase to the contract. So with that, with this new contract, now's the time to put it into contract when it comes to Elk Ridge. I would like to see some sort of a true-up process in this agreement as well, so that we can, you know, get that balancing act to come together.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion on that I think would actually work for both the county and the cities, because we're on a calendar versus a fiscal year. For example, looking forward, we're looking at our market study and insurance costs that all will take effect the 1st of January. So for this next year, that would mean next spring, 60 days in advance, which is roughly May 1st, we do that true up, recognizing all the additional costs that have been incurred since the 1st of the year. Then we go ahead and make the cities aware of what the new cost is, plus the additional cost because of those changes, which the cities, I believe, are okay at paying if we have an increase in wages and those type things. Then we just allow them to go ahead and pay that in their new fiscal year, starting in July. We'll just book it as a receivable. That gives the flexibility to the cities to go ahead and have time to account for those new expenses in their budget, including the ones that were incurred at the end of their fiscal year, but at the beginning of our calendar year. And I think as long as we do that, it should work out really good for everybody concerned.
So the other question I have is when we go down through these expenses, or we go to increase the fees, is that something that typically should come before the commission on our fee schedule?
It does.
Okay, so we saw the one for the 3%. I don't remember that one, but maybe it was there.
It was in April.
Was it in April?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, very good. And then second, I wanted to make sure and talk about the citation credits.
Hold on, let's not skip over that point real quick. So if I hear what we're saying, is that statement that we have in the Eagle Mountain contract, that paragraph that talks about reviewing by April 1st, let's make sure we put that paragraph into all of our contracts.
Yeah.
Eagle Ridge, Elk Ridge, wow,
Vineyard.
Eagle Mountain, Elk Ridge, Vineyard, everybody,
Flint
right,
Hills,
Woodland, yeah.
yeah.
So if that's okay, make sure we start adding that.
So we can do that on this one as we approve it.
There, you do have smaller cities out there, Cedar Fort, Fairfield, things like that are only paying $15,000 a year for the services. We respond there when called.
Right.
Basically, so there are those that are out there that that can't apply to. I mean, they pay what they can afford, and we go out there. The problem with that is it's the statutory responsibility to provide that anyway. So under 1722 in the code, it says the sheriff protects or provides law enforcement for the county. And so that's not gonna work for all of them, realizing that we've got some that are just, they pay us what they can.
Well, if that totally applies, then they could basically say, we're not gonna pay you anything, and you still have to do it.
Right.
That's correct.
But the commission's the one that decides the budget, and how much law enforcement's gonna be needed. So what we're saying is, like we did with Bookmobile, being very consistent. All we're trying to say here is these cities that, so Eagle Mountain, for example, okay?
Eagle Mountain's a full-blown police department.
Right, right.
So that's-
And so they know, he
Yes.
just wants more time to know on the money.
Yeah.
Vineyard's willing to pay, Elk Ridge is willing to pay,
Yes.
and they're willing to pay our costs.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, when we do that, we just wanna make sure we're charging them only what our
Agreed.
cost is.
I agree.
We're not trying to, again, we're not even trying to make a penny on them. We're literally trying to cover 100% of the cost with the best estimates that we can.
Right.
That statement to us gives us that protection to go back and look at that
And
estimate to make
technically,
sure.
if we've overbilled, there should be some that needs to go
Absolutely,
back.
absolutely,
Yes,
yes,
Agreed.
and that's what we say.
absolutely agreed.
That's what we're trying to protect is both
Absolutely agreed.
sides.
Just with the understanding, we've got those little areas,
Sure.
those little towns out there that
Sure.
we just,
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I think, just hang on one second. And I think that's a discussion that we need to have, with those cities if it's problematic. Again, we just want to break even. I think they want to break even as well, and they have a responsibility to their citizens for law enforcement as well as we do. And so if it looks like those costs are exceeding, then we need to have that conversation. I don't know who makes that decision and says, okay, you're good enough at 5,000, or you're good enough at 10,000 or 15,000. I think that needs to be a decision that is made, that we know about. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when those smaller entities, even incorporating as a town, they also have legal obligations to provide for those services. So even though we are bound countywide, they individually are also bound to do that. And I think you just use the exact same model would be my recommendation, just on a smaller scale. We probably have enough historical average or historical information as far as
we know
call-outs that
how
you
many
know about.
calls we take.
Yeah, and so it'd just be a matter, I would think, of having the conversation with the city, saying historically, or the town, like Cedar Fort, we've gone out X number of times this coming year, it looks like this, then still have that true-up process with them.
We actually just
like
did that with Cedar Fort,
Okay.
and you guys were involved in that one, and we ended up giving them some money back. We overcharged Cedar.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
Okay. So it'd be good to have, and their second, probably just to express it, so the citation credits, they belong to the county.
Right.
Because we do both sides of that, 50% and 50%, we do that. And then the last one that we talked about yesterday, that I did a little bit more research on, was that, because I know there's some missing parts in there that we started going from, we looked at the Eagle Mountain one with the $200,000 that seems to be the gap, and started breaking it down with 83 or 80,000 citation credits, and there were some other things in there. Motor pool was one, and I personally think that's where we have kind of that missing link that is there to look on that back end with motor pool, and we should have some more conversations on budget versus actual versus expense, and see where that difference is really coming in, because I think that's where it's at personally. But anyway, other thoughts?
Nope.
So if we could, I would like to see us entertain a motion
Yeah,
to accept this
with the amended paragraph.
with the amended paragraph for the true-up.
So I will move that we approve and authorize the commission chair to execute the agreement stated in 13 with the amended added paragraph of they look back for protection for both county and the city.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to approve and authorize the chair to execute the agreement as stated, number 13, with the modifications as discussed and stated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Renee, if you have any questions on that, we can get it correct. Okay.
Hey, who wanted
Okay,
this one?
number,
Eric?
number 15.
Carl did.
Carl Hahn, Deputy County Attorney. Just a note that the cover sheet for this agreement just needs a few things added to it. On
Hold on, let me
three-
pull up the agreement real quick.
Yep.
The cover sheet.
Yeah, it's just called the agreement on the
Okay.
uploads. Number 3 in term should have an end date, which looking at the comments, I believe would be in 2021.
Okay.
And then 4 attachment A
Okay,
should be checked.
2021 though, end of our budget year or end of like summer?
It's not specified, so.
Okay, so December 31, 2021.
Sure.
Works, okay?
Yeah. And then attachment A, that should be checked, that box should be checked. That's all.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Then I will move that we approve the agreement in number 15 with the discussed changes. You've got those. Okay.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the new agreement as stated in number 15 with the modifications as discussed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
That passes 3-0. With us on the phone and here and aye, aye, aye. Okay, number 16. This one, we have continuous talking about the bookmobile and the memorandum of understanding we have there, the agreement we have with the state services on this. Did you want to come up? And thank you for hanging in there and working with us on this and trying to help us get our minds around it. I still have a number of questions. I sent an email off after I got the numbers back on the 2 different memorandums that we have in here. The first one we have is for 105, which is consistent with the way we've done it in the past. And the second one is for the 92-178. And I sent an email back saying I'd like to see the backup document of how you got to that number. And I didn't receive an email back, so I'm not sure what, and it didn't go to you. And I didn't receive any more information. And the reason why I was asking for the backup document is this is the dilemma. I don't know how I got on the point of this one, but somehow.
Because you're chair.
Yeah. So what's happened is that I've had Linden City call, some council members from Elk Ridge. I talked with the mayor of Mapleton, and the Cedar Fort mayor also. We've had some communication back and forth, and then I know that we're working with Vineyard to find a number that works for them and us. And the dilemma is that I don't know how to really get to a number for them if they want to have a stop there, because I don't know what the formula is that the bookmobile is basing that number on. So for instance, I would assume that the bookmobile has a base price, meaning that base price covers the expenses, the overhead, whatever the case may be when it comes to the bookmobile itself, and whatever that number is the base price. And then as we add stops or subtract stops, we do it based off of a formula, be it miles away from Mapleton, time that's allocated there. And so if somebody was to come to me and say, well, we'd like to have a stop, and that works into the schedule, we could say, well, to do that, because again, we're not trying to make money. We're in essence, the county is not losing money, but we're subsidizing to an extent. I don't know how to work those numbers because I don't know what it would cost for somebody for the bookmobile to go there. And so when I see that we went from 105 down to the 92, that's the reason why I was asking for the backup documents so that if they came, and this was taking off those cities that had not been paying, and some of them are saying now, one wants to discuss it tonight after this meeting, and if they come back on, but they're asking for a price, and all I can give them is rough estimates on what that would be. So I'm confused with the formula on how we can do that.
Britton Lund, Bookmobile Program Manager for the state of Utah. So I reduced the cost with personnel time reduction, as well as the amount of money we spend on books. If we're serving fewer people, we can spend less on materials because we will circulate fewer materials. Because of the location of the communities that were in question as far as paying and being incorporated, because of those being interspersed with other communities that are unincorporated, it doesn't reduce the cost of the actual vehicle and the charges to Fleet by very much. Fleet charges us a flat cost because, as I told you before, we lease our vehicle from Fleet. It's a state requirement. They charge us a flat cost, then they add on a per mile cost and fuel. Because we would go, and I don't have the schedule in front of me, I apologize, but because we would go most of the same number of miles, but spend less time in those areas, it doesn't reduce the truck cost by much. The largest savings to the county is the reduction in staff time, because if we are cutting an hour and a half on one day and an hour on another day and 2 hours on another day to total 5 hours for the librarian, based on times with the doors open at stops, that is the major difference. Because we have a semi-scientific formula that the technician in the headquarters works about 75% of the number of hours that the librarian works, because of the materials that we process through interlibrary loan, check-ins, check-outs, preparation for holds to be picked up at each location. Because of the fewer hours on the road for the librarian, we could afford fewer hours for the technician in the headquarters. So those are your major savings.
Okay.
In the formula that I gave you.
Yeah, so
what's the hourly rate then on the staff?
I don't have that with me. I apologize. I have if I sat down with my calculator, I could figure it out right now, or looked at my email, but I did not bring that hourly rate with me. And it's because there are benefits involved. It's not just an hourly rate. It's a cost per hour of staff. And I didn't bring that with me, but I can get it to you in a few minutes.
So my question, a question comes in then, if we have, and it looks like we have, there's possible stops of 15 here, 15 stops. How far can you go in the way of stops before you say that this price needs to increase? What if the county came to you and said, we need 30 stops? You'd increase the price.
And from the 105,
Yeah.
that is our cap, because that's what it costs us to run the bookmobile for the 40 hours the librarian can work and the 28 hours the technician can work.
So this 92 then, if that's, I'm trying to get to the base, is what I'm trying to get to. Is the 92,000 then the base where if we said, well, we can only go $80,000, would you say we can't do the bookmobile?
I would have to calculate that. I don't believe that is the case. It would reduce the number of hours that the staff worked and the number of dollars we allocated for materials.
Right.
And
there's a formula in there. That's where I'm missing. I don't know what that formula is.
well, if we go fewer miles as well, the way the cities are located right now, if we leave them where they are, we don't reduce our miles by very much. So if you said we want this many stops, I can't tell you I could tell you the total cost per hour if I calculated it out with the states. I didn't do that math. With the county's input, as financial input, and the state's financial input, if I costed that out at the price per hour that we're on the road, then I could give you that number, but I did not do that kind of
Do you
math.
know what the Fleet price is per mile?
I don't, would have to
Does it
have
exceed
Fleet.
the IRS rate of 53.5 cents?
It does. It's anywhere from 75 to $1.25 per mile.
Wow.
And it depends on the number of miles and the age of the vehicle, and there's a lot of factors they put into it. I can tell you it's around, if you quote
An
me on-
estimate's fine.
it's around 1,000 to 1,200 a month. And they charge us by the month, that's the flat fee. Then we have
Do we run all 12 months?
we do.
Okay.
There's 1 week that we have an annual conference that all my staff gets together because they don't see each other except that one time a year. And then generally the last 2 weeks of
Okay,
December,
so
we're off
at the
the road.
most, it's
so-
$14,000 a year.
Yes,
We are 105,000 is the cap, you said, right?
yes, because that's what it costs
You
us
said
to run 40 hours.
68 hours per week is all you're allowed.
Correct.
Okay, so our rate is then $27.65 a week,
Thank
or
you.
per hour.
$27.65
Yes,
per hour.
if we're charged a flat
Okay.
rate for a fleet, then we're $27.60 an hour.
Okay.
Based on that.
There are
That's
other.
a real rough based
Right,
on your.
because there are other costs in there, like, the materials. You know, we took that down to 18,000. It was budgeted at 20,000. We took it down to 18. If we ran the full time,
Well, all I'm doing is if the contract can't exceed 105,000 and you have 14,000 in cost, you have 91,000 in man hours and supplies.
you still have, did you put books in there? The materials?
Supplies.
budget? And we also have a supplies budget to process those materials. That is.
But what I'm saying is $91,000 is everything that's not fleet.
Okay,
So 91,000 divided by those two people that work 68 hours a week still gives you an hourly rate because they can't exceed those hours,
that's correct.
which is roughly just over 3,800 hours a year between the two of them. Divide by 91 is how you get that number.
And then Mapleton, they help offset some of that, right?
They,
Mapleton?
the costs that are in your contract, no, they do, we didn't include any costs that they cover in the contract. In the figures that we get to come up with a contract amount. So they pay the electricity, they provide the space, they provide our internet, and they provide additional staff that keep the library open more hours.
So we could take that number, knowing the hours now, and knowing, and then getting from you the places in the county in which you stop, you go to and stop, and we can back into that in the sense that we can add that up and say, when you're in the county, there's so many hours in the unincorporated areas, and then the other areas that you're stopping are in the cities, and we can divide that by the hours and give an allocation. That's where I'm trying to go.
You're trying to create your formula with my help with figures is what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm trying to get to a point to
Well,
where.
the numbers are still real, right?
Yes.
So the
They
reality
are.
is if you have 3-hour stop, you have $75 plus you have fleet. So in essence, if you have 3 stops in a day and you're $1,200 a month and you're 4 weeks, you're at $300 a week per car. You're $60 a day for fleet pricing. So if you divide that by between 3, each city pays $20 for a stop. Plus, if it's 3-hour stop, all of a sudden it's a $100 stop, right? Like it's that easy.
And that's where we're trying to get,
Right.
because that way we can look in the county and we can say, in the county, we have these many stops, this is the hours, and we can add that up, and we could know approximately what's the county's portion
Right.
of this.
But see, so if Linden City, for example, under that scenario, using those really quick, right, and they get 4 stops, let's say they get 1 stop a week at 3 hours, right?
They have 1.5 hours.
A week.
No, every other week.
Okay, so 3 hours then. So if it's $100,
No, 1.5 hours, and we go every other week.
right, 300 a month, 3 hours
A month, every 4 weeks, yes.
which is $300 times 12 is $3,600. See, this $1,000 isn't even close. That's what we're trying to say. So now we can go to Linden and say, here's our fleet price, here's the $3,600, and I'm here to tell you, for them, that's a bargain for a library.
Yeah.
$3,600 is still a bargain, but now the
Because you know-
county's not
I
subsidizing.
don't disagree.
Because you know how I was looking at it, and I told them, I think they're gonna discuss it, hopefully they're listening today. We were doing it on population. Well, their population is quite large compared to some of the others, and so I told them approximately this could be $14,000. Well, now they're looking at it and saying, I don't know if that's really gonna work or not. I mean, they can go to Pleasant Grove, they can go to Orem, We only have so many patrons that are showing up there anyway, and so they're weighing those costs based off of a figure I gave them on population. But if we can work it through on the numbers we have now, then we can actually see what the stops are in the county, what they are in the cities, and those who want to participate in the cities. And I don't know how we do it if they start dropping off. If they start dropping off, I guess then what we do is we reduce the contract price down that fits the county's. If the county is the only one in, then we pay the county price for the bookmobile. Even if the time or the rate's a little bit lower. Not the rate, but the time. Okay, it sounds to me like we have to have just a little bit more discussion, but I don't know where, because some of the numbers we're kind of guessing at, right?
But you've got an approximate amount.
Yeah. Can we
That's-
get those numbers, those hard numbers on
The fleet and
the fleet and the hourly and?
Yes, I can. I can't give that to you. Can't give that to you this minute, but I
No,
can
we
give
don't
it to
need
you
it this
today.
minute. If you
Yeah.
just get it later.
Yeah, I can
Today
give
or
it to you
tomorrow.
today.
Yes.
Then we can reach back out to cities. We'll do the math.
Yeah, we can, if we know the formula on there, then we can take it from there and run with it and
Okay.
charge appropriately.
And then we can have that conversation with the cities, let them know if they're willing to pay $3,500 or $1,800, whatever that number is.
Right.
And then help you with your stops, get this thing approved and done quickly.
If you tell us those places where you would like us to discontinue service, we will
Well-
reroute our schedule.
Okay, well, if we get the numbers first, and the problem is that if the cities that have called me, I did it on a population basis, and that formula is not workable. That was almost a guess. And if we have that, now we can start backing it in. We'll probably have to have conversations with the cities. And I'm assuming, because they asked this question, the cities ask, well, what happens if you have this in place and the bookmobile's here in the county and we want to add, or they come in mid-year? Well, knowing what the caps are and what the limits are, we can say either we can add or we can't, because you have limitations to your hours as well and how many hours you can use.
That's correct. However, we could adjust stop times. For instance, if we have one that's an hour and a half, perhaps we could cut that one to an hour and add somebody else. Or,
Right, but if they're paying for their actual use.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Have to
near
adjust that
impossible to
at
do.
the end of
That's
the
why.
year.
Yes.
if we rearrange unincorporated and incorporated, then, I mean,
Yeah.
we can work it out if we add time or if we rearrange time. So we can do any of those at however you wish us to do that.
As soon as you can get us those numbers, we can get moving ASAP.
Okay?
Thank you.
So
we
both
wanna strike
16
this
and,
or
no,
continue it for 2 weeks?
how long will it take? It doesn't
I'll
sound,
have it to you before I leave today.
But the conversation with the cities, do we
Oh.
think within 72 hours, we're gonna hear from the cities?
No.
So I think if we give ourselves 2 weeks, knowing that you'll get it to us today, we're still going to work on this right away. That way we can get the answers from the city and,
so we'll have to continue 16 and 17 for 2 weeks.
yes. Okay, I will move then that we continue regular agenda items 16 and 17 for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Second?
I got a motion and a second to continue regular agenda item number 16 and 17 for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. I think that was.
Aye.
Aye, yeah.
We got 4 in there. All right, that passes 3-0. We'll move now to we'll look at our closed meetings. The only one that I have is, and somehow these got flipped around. I don't know if we usually put them in a different order. That doesn't matter. Number 20 is the only one that I have that we need for closed meetings. So we can strike the others and then.
Okay. Commissioner Ivy, it's your turn, but would you like me to do it since you're on the phone?
Nope, I got it.
Okay.
I'll move that we strike, regular agenda items for 18, 19, and 21.
Second?
A motion and a second to strike agenda items number 18, 19, and 21. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss for reasons imminent litigation. Today's date is upon completion of the particular agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve a set date, time, and location for a strategy session on imminent litigation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. I have no work session items. Is there any general public comment?
Come on up.
Come on up, please state your name and
Brad Freeman from Lone Peak Fire District. I represent them. I thought our item would be discussed. I was discussing this item in the foyer with the fire marshal, and it wasn't on the consent agenda, and then they said, oh, no, we already put it on. It's been discussed. So I'd like a chance just to discuss this for a minute if I could. As you know, that we've had an issue over the past years with being a fire district versus a city, and how we assess our residents. We look at it as the whole outside boundary, not as cities in the boundary. So they're assessed per household. We don't assess by property values. They're assessed by household. So we count the number of households, or if it's a business, we go ERUs, which is 10,000 square feet equal a household. And then the price comes out, and that's our cost of what it costs us to service the residents. Well, we discussed this with the past commission and the county, and they thought, to be fair, let's have another meeting. We had a meeting in the council, in a council room, and they came up with a fair agreement of our assessment. And they agreed to that. It was written up. And I know this last year they've shorted us $15,000, the county, on our assessment, and our budget year ended June 30th. Because they say, well, according to the rest of our contracts, this is really all we pay. And we said, well, we had this agreement with the commissioners earlier. Well, so I guess I'm here to discuss two items. One is we've still shorted that money, and it mainly is for the Cove, all the residents that live in the Cove, the homes. And then the new contract going forward, we signed it just because we didn't have a contract, but we did put an amendment to it. Our city manager sent over an amendment, and I don't think that got included, is what I've been told. So I guess it's kind of like the opposite of the law enforcement, where you guys charge the cities. You guys want to be treated fair, and you're not going to make a profit. That's our cost. It's just what we're charging you. And it's about $250 a household for full services that we provide the county residents. And so we're a little different, like I said, than other cities, because we got quite a few homes that are county residents, and we also are a district where that's our only funding source. We don't get funding like normal cities. So my suggestion would be, and it's very simple, we just count the number of structures that are county structures, times it by the average rate, which is about, like I said, it's about $250, $257 a year, and then that's our assessment. As you notice, the other cities that have wild land in their area or fields, we don't assess those people because we're not based on property values. It's only on households. And
why aren't you just not appraised on property value? Because
that's a good
fire damage is assessed on value. Everything is done on value. So,
and that's a great question. It was that way about 5 years ago. 50% would be based on property value and 50% would be based on population. Well, the cities got together and felt that that wasn't fair for the smaller cities to pay their fair share. So they went strictly on population and household and went away from property values. And that wasn't my decision. That was higher than me, to make that decision. But that's the current way it's assessed.
What's not fair about a citizen that has a $1 million home paying $1 million home worth of fire protection?
Because what they figured was we're a smaller department, and if we have a house fire, let's say in a $150,000 home, it takes all our resources that we have on duty at a time. We only have 9 guys on duty at a time plus 3 stations. It takes all 3 stations and 9 guys just to create a first alarm, meaning they'll go on, everybody goes on that fire. Then if we need help, we call mutual aid. If it's a $1 million home in the Cove burning, it's the same. We send all 3 stations and 9 guys. It doesn't cost us any more to fight a fire in a $1 million home because we just have to get mutual aid, which is basically free for the extra help. So that's the way they figure it. Now, if it was Salt Lake City, your argument would be correct, because in Salt Lake City, a $1 million home is going to be a 4-alarm fire where they have 7 stations responding, say with 100 people, whereas a small home would be 3 stations with 12 people. And that's why they would charge, that's why it would, if they did it that way, it'd be based on property values, because it costs more to
And the
fight.
insurance reimbursed, they don't say how many households were damaged.
Exactly.
They say what was the total value.
Right, and so I understand, and I, like I said, I didn't come up with a formula. That's the formula that they're currently assessing under. If we went to a true district that they were looking at, it would be based totally on property values. That's how true districts are based on. They wouldn't be based on population or households. But currently, that's what we're based on right now. And so when we look at the county contract, you know, it's based mainly on wildland, because a lot of the county areas are mostly wildland, you know, and there's farmhouses in a lot of communities and so forth. But our community has a lot of structures in it, and big structures, you know. And so we provide that service, that full service. And I kind of say it's kind of like insurance. You know, they were discussing a few years earlier, well, you get paid after the first hour, and we pay you in this and that if we use you. Well, we're kind of an insurance company. If you don't use your car insurance, you still have to pay insurance. It still costs us money to have people waiting for a fire or waiting for paramedics to respond. It still costs us money to have them in the station, whether we're by a call basis or not.
That's not my argument. My argument is really the notion that a $150,000 home burns the same as $1 million home. That's just not true. $1 million home in nature would have more square footage than a $150,000 home. So it does not. There is no way that it takes you the exact same amount of money to put out one versus another.
Well, from our resource standpoint, everybody's getting paid whether they're on a fire or not. You know, they just get paid. And so we can't increase our resources.
Versus a 100 square foot building burn, just because you send everybody, that 100 square foot one can be contained and put out in maybe an hour. The other one may take 2 or 3 hours. So it, by nature, can't cost the same. That's why you charge based on assessed value, because you are going to spend more money. Now all these other people are subsidizing all the millionaires. That's just not a Utah County principle that most of us agree with.
Well, and I agree. As far as I think it should be both ways, both property values and population, because we provide both services, EMS and fire, and EMS is usually follows higher calls are based on higher population. Fires are higher losses, like you're saying, or higher square footage is a higher loss potential. So I didn't set the system up as far as how they're assessing. I don't get a vote on that, but that's the way they assess right now.
I didn't either, obviously.
Yeah. So, but my point is, just to be fair, is what I'm saying. And our costs are about $250 per year per household for our costs. And like I said, we're not making money on that. That's just what everybody pays in our district that has a structure, whether it's up the canyon, you know, the cabin areas, or the Forest Service buildings, or the Cove, and now we have Box Elder South, and that's going to be, I know they're trying to annex into Alpine right now, and we were talking to the attorney, the county attorney, and he says, well, what if they annex and we lose our money if we pay you up front? And we've never been paid up front, but even if we did have some money up front, that would be rebate, I would assume that would be returned to the county, and Alpine would pay those assessments for those homes. So the county wouldn't lose money when there's an annexation. It would just be worked out, because Alpine City would now pay those fees.
So a couple of questions for you. You said a couple of things that I'm not sure, at least I haven't been a part of conversations. You said in the past we had, because there's basically two things going on. One, there's the contracts kind of in general, the quarterly, I call them quarterly payments. They come in, and the second one is this $15,000. That $15,000 one, you alluded that the county commission had agreed to that or had seen that, and I don't know who agreed to it, because we can't find an agreement. We can't find a contract. There's no written language to that $15,000, and I haven't seen it. And it was brand new to me when it came up, and we looked for an agreement. If you have one, provide it to us, because we can't find one anywhere.
I looked at the writing, and I don't have it with me. It wasn't an official agreement. It was supposed to be written up. It was a verbal agreement, and it was never a contract. Maybe I'll put it that way. And we have that. They did find that and sent it to your attorney, Mr. Court.
I'll just state publicly, I'm never going to pay a verbal agreement.
I know, I understand.
I'm just saying I'll never do that.
Right.
And see, we actually can't, because it has to come here. it has to come here for us to
Right.
actually go through that process.
Right.
And so to hold us to some of past verbal agreement, which we don't know and has never come here, is an extremely uphill battle. I don't think we'll ever get there with
Right,
that. And
and-
that's kind of the problem that we're running into with that additional 15,000 that somebody agreed to. Neither one of us can remember
I
any
know I wasn't
conversations. And so it's, that's becomes very problematic for us.
Right.
To then retroactively go back and say, we're gonna expend county resources on an agreement that somebody, whoever made that agreement should fulfill it if they made that kind of agreement. We didn't, and the county didn't.
Right.
That's the problem.
And I'm sorry to speak to that because that's kind of above my head, but when it was Commissioner Ellerson was in the meeting, and I thought the county would write the agreement, because you guys write the contracts.
Right.
And once they agreed, I thought it would come in writing, and I don't see that. That goes above my head, but we have been paid the last 2 or 3 years since that occurred, that extra 15,000. This is the first year we haven't. And so, like I said, I can research that, but that's, I mean, it's like I said, those agreements are made kind of above me as far as the contracts and so forth. I don't sign the contracts. And I assumed it was in place. And then when the fire marshal told me, well, we haven't had a contract with you guys for several years, I said, well, let's get one then, you know, and that's when this one came up. But like I said, we still sent a supplement, and I don't know if that got included in the contract. I haven't been told that. I was just told to, you know, to come here today and see if we could recoup the past.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. But
Yeah, and I
mean,
like I
just
said-
understand for us, it's really important for us to have contracts in place. And as you saw with some of this here, when individuals come up and they have plans, we say, if it's in the plan,
Right.
then we're gonna hold ourselves to it and the contractors to it. But if we have no contract, it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it shouldn't go anywhere.
No, it shouldn't. I agree.
And it concerns me that,
Yeah.
that things have been paid in the past, which without a contract, that's concerning.
Right. But does it seem reasonable, what my argument is about the households? As far as going forward?
I can see your argument, you know, on how that would be, but that would be a conversation for us from here going forward.
Right,
Instead
exactly.
of from here looking back.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all righty, thank you.
Yep.
I'd just like to make a comment on.
State your name, Jack.
Jack Snow, County Fire Marshal. I know that I have received some written references to this agreement and had questions over whether we should pay it or not. And I did authorize payment for 2 years in a row by referencing Commissioner Ellertson's agreement and doing so at his request. This most recent one was held up along with, I think, 2 quarterly payments because we didn't have a contract. And I certainly agree with the concept that we should have contracts. We should have contracts with all the people that we deal with on our fire protection. But I think that Lone Peak Fire Department has responded to all fires in the county. They've done whatever they needed to do on every occasion that I'm aware of. I don't always work with them on the wildland fires, but on that would be the wildland fire crews with the sheriff's office. But as far as structure fires and so forth, they've always responded and they've done.
I don't think any of us are questioning
Yeah,
them and their good work that they're doing.
And
I think
understand.
my problem is the more people keep speaking, the more offended I am actually at how we got there and have issued $30,000 in payment because we have politicians that say something and don't put it in writing. I mean, heaven forbid, this county has hired, and I know it's a slight exaggeration, but 250 attorneys that love drafting stuff and writing stuff down. It is
I
not
concur.
hard to put it on an agenda so everybody knows. Again, the public is not gonna have a problem with paying to support fire.
Mhm.
But why we don't put garbage in, put that stuff in writing becomes garbage for the rest of us to clean up, and quite
Mhm.
honestly, it's not even appropriate. I can't go out there and commit this commission, it's actually illegal for me to go and represent and commit the commission to do something. I can represent me and my views, not the commission by
I
myself.
agree with you.
That has to be done right here.
I agree with you.
So.
Yep. I guess my comment was, the quarterly payments that were held up, I would assume that they would be.
I can tell you
paid
that we
retroactively.
just, we wanted to just make sure we knew what we were getting into. That was the only reason. There was a delay, and I'll admit to that. I was the one that's like, no, let's get it sorted out. We can get it taken care of, but that's been taken care of.
I was there too, because the quarterly payments, when I looked at that, and, you know, all the pages that were in there, I saw 15,000 in there a couple of times, which were caps, and I thought, we're going back to this. I don't know where we're at. And because we're going through an annexation process with the city as well, we said, let's slow play this to get things worked out, because the more I started asking questions, the more questions I had. I got to the point to where I was actually looking at the clerk auditor's office, the ones that are entering these 15,000 payments that you're referring to, and there's comments in there by our employees that you can feel their hesitancy to even enter that in, because they felt like, whoa, this is out of line. And so when I started reading those, I thought, well, okay, we've got to just slow down. We've got to get to a point of understanding first before we can go forward. I think we're there, or we're closer there, but the past for us, I don't want to step back into the past and do something and promote something that was done, I think, inappropriately. And so I think going forward is our best option.
Yeah.
And I've expressed that even to
Yeah.
Mayor Wimmer as well, and
Yeah.
others.
I think my only comments were that, going forward, I agree completely. I think we could address the quarterly payments that were held up just pending the contract and.
Not the contract, we need to get the contract. We need to get a contract.
Yeah.
Well, and that's been approved. The quarterly one's already
Right,
done.
now.
Yeah, now.
But I'm saying if we want to do this additional fee, we need to get a contract, because there is a.
Yes, I concur completely. Moving forward.
And you have to realize the annexation from Alpine changes the whole thing, because they came to us with, additional requests for roads and a water valve. And part of their argument was they said, well, we realize that there's been some this is before I knew anything about this 15,000. And they said the 15,000 will go away because now it's in the city. And so that's part of, they were selling that as a recoup in value. So we should not be seeing a $15,000 bill going forward, because that was part of the annexation.
Yeah, even
with
the
city.
formula on the contract will change with that annexation. There will be less
Right.
compensation
Yes,
going in
yes.
based on that. As far as what to do about the agreement for this past year, I'm just have no particular comments on that, other than that they have honored their
If
their
there's an
agreement, even though
agreement,
it
we
wasn't
will honor
formalized.
our agreement.
Okay.
If there's an agreement, there's not a commissioner up here that will not honor a
Absolutely,
valid
I'm
legal
sure.
agreement.
Okay, thank you.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, based upon your actions today, one quarterly payment has been released, and the other is just waiting for the contract, so.
Okay, so those quarterly payments are on their way. All right. That was under public comment, which is, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our closed meetings. Thank you.
Spring, this is your phone, right?
You still there? You still there, Nathan?
We can just call him and get him on our phone.
Are you still there?
We'll just put him on our phone, Spring.
I don't think he's here.
You don't need me to sign anything.
No, I'd like your input here.
Oh.
They're gonna ask him to sign something. Forest Service, we have a contract with Forest Service. Providing
I don't think so.
152,000 for a new bridge.
We are gonna talk about your volunteer, probably,
Contract with Contact for the bridge.
Talon.
Okay. A little bit of time crunch.
Your volunteer, Talon, that
Has legal
volunteer that got
review.
hurt.
Oh, Carl.
But that's gonna be
Come here.
administrative afterwards.
So our
Was
process,
there any
our,
question-
wait,
we're
our
waiting to hear
process
whether
is
workers'
with
comp
this,
recovery
I
was-
think Dave tried to solidify this.
And I
If we're
hope
doing
that
this,
Tammy got an
he needs to
answer
come
before-
talk with us on an
We've been
individual
waiting,
basis and
waiting.
get it okay for me to sign it prematurely, before we put it on.
So my question to you is, have you reviewed
Not
this?
sure.
Are all these boxes checked?
That's all we're gonna do.
Did you get your
discuss.
phone?
Hey, then will you
Yeah,
let
I
Richard
talked to
know that if
Wally.
he wants to have
We've
Bill
gotta
sign
make
it, I
sure
would be glad
that
to ratify
these
it.
volunteers go through the whole process.
Carl,
I
but
think
you
what
need
was
to
happening,
talk
the
with
form
all
was
three
signed
commissioners.
and put into the file. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, yeah.
We've literally got a bid yet. We're under a time crunch on the more money.
So I don't think he is, Dan.
We're trying to get it ordered a week earlier than waiting until next week. That's our only, reason to speed it up a while.
Because we had this conversation with Dave, and,
I'm not having these
no,
conversations.
and so, yeah, so it was one with ratification that whichever attorney's in charge of it, they're to go talk with the commissioners on an individual basis, probably get it in an email for their own protection on ratification. And then they come to me after they've got that, either when they've got two, and then I'll
About the whole
sign
county?
it,
Thank you.
and put it on to the next.
Is it that?
We got involved in it. Larry tried to get us involved in it.
There you go.